This podcast is brought to you by Conquer Cancer, the ASCO Foundation. Our mission is to accelerate breakthroughs in life-saving research and empower people everywhere to conquer cancer. Welcome to Your Stories, a podcast where we hear candid stories from people conquering cancer. I am your host, Dr. Don Dizon. The holiday season is supposed to be a time of joy and giving, but for someone navigating cancer, enjoying the holidays and thinking of others can often feel impossible. When fashion publicist Melissa Berry, aka the Cancer Fashionista, was diagnosed with breast cancer, numerous questions raced through her mind. Things like, will I need chemo? Will I lose my hair? Where do I find a wig? Where's the Vogue in breast cancer? As a fashion and beauty publicist, Melissa empowers people to embody the best versions of themselves. Now a cancer survivor, patient advocate, and host of the Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful podcast, Melissa has built a personal brand and social media following that she uses to help others navigate breast cancer. In this episode of Your Stories, the Cancer Fashionista, we'll talk about the value of encouraging patients and survivors to focus on themselves, especially during a time often associated with giving, celebration, and selflessness. She also shares how loved ones and caregivers can more effectively connect with the patients in their own lives, and in the process, give them as joyful a holiday season as possible. Welcome, Melissa, and it's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Dizon, and thank you for this wonderful introduction. I'm humbled and honored to be here.
Please call me Dawn. Before we get started, let's just hear, where are you joining us today from?
Absolutely, and thank you again for having me. I am joining from New Jersey. I was born and raised here, and I live not too far from New York City.
Oh, that's fantastic. One of my favorite cities. Okay, let's get to your story, and we'll start from the beginning. What was going through your mind in those initial moments after learning you had breast cancer, especially given your own family history of the disease?
Great question. Quite honestly, disbelief. Even though I had a lot of breast cancer in my family and my mother urged me to have the BRCA test done when I was about 32, and even knowing that I was carrying the BRCA gene and being closely monitored, somehow, Don, I really felt that I was not going to get breast cancer because I was so proactive. Like I always say, I was, doing yoga. I had the BRCA test. I was, I felt like I was really on it. And I was shocked when I first learned of my diagnosis.
It's so common for younger women who get diagnosed with breast cancer to be diagnosed oftentimes when they feel their best. It's like when their life is going well and they are healthy, and then they get diagnosed. And there's oftentimes a delay because at your age, you may or may not have been undergoing screening based on your BRCA test, but oftentimes it's picked up on a clinical exam. And I'm just wondering, is that something you're able to talk about a little bit?
Oh, without a doubt. So I was very closely monitored because I was carrying the BRCA gene. So what does that mean? I was having MRIs, clinical exams, ultrasounds every few months. I was just going for a routine mammogram, and I learned that it is protocol to have a clinical exam before your mammo. So the nurse practitioner was feeling my breast for anything abnormal, and I had just had an MRI. So in my head, I'm thinking, I have stuff to do. I was a publicist at the time. I remember I was representing like a luxury watch brand. I'm just thinking, I need to get out of here, take the watches to Vogue. Like, let's wrap this up. And my defining moment was she felt a very small lump and she put a sticker on it. And I thought, okay, this is not feeling routine to me right now. And I went in for a mammogram. They did not see anything on the mammogram at that moment. But then I was sent into another room where the doctor came in and said, I would like to do a deep needle biopsy. And that's when I really felt like this is not going in a good direction. This is not what I was expecting. I was expecting to be in and out. And they did find there was something there. I was told this is all in one day too, all in one appointment. You have breast cancer. And it was like the walls were moving, like the room was spinning. It was like almost out of body. Like I literally couldn't believe it.
That is incredible. And it's, again, I'm sure you hear it as well from your own community. It is such a shared story. And no matter how many times I hear it, the shock just comes through when someone is telling it, especially because most people don't think of breast cancer in people as young as you.
Absolutely. And like I said, I felt this was not going to happen to me. It wasn't going to happen to me. And not only did it happen to me, Don, but I also was diagnosed very shortly thereafter with triple negative breast cancer, which, as I'm sure you know, is one of the more aggressive kinds of breast cancer. I didn't even know there were different types of breast cancer. So now this becomes a crash course in breast cancer. And unfortunately, that's when we learn everything, right? Is when it's happening to us. And it's very hard to digest. And why it's so important to have friends, family, partners to be there to help absorb the shock and figure out what to do next.
Yeah, I always say, and I'm saying to this as a publicist now, we need to do a better job of getting the public to care about cancer before it affects them or someone they love. It's just one of these things, right? It's like cancer is so prevalent. You know, the latest statistic is that 1 out of every 2 adults will get cancer. And yet the public goes along and there's just this general lack of awareness. So I'm so glad you're here doing this podcast. So let's jump forward here because we are approaching the holiday season. And as you know as well, traditionally it's a time when we talk about giving to people that we love. It's about coming together and it's about being selfless. And that can sometimes feel at odds, especially when you're trying to devote your energy to self care, which is so, so important for both people with cancer and those who have completed that cancer experience and are looking at cure. Can you talk a little bit what it's like for patients navigating a season that is so heavily focused on giving and what they really should be thinking about or doing even to take care of themselves?
Thank you for raising this question. Look, it's a very personal choice. We all, I think, embrace the holiday time in different ways. Some of us really enjoy it. Some of us loathe it because maybe we have loved ones that aren't here with us anymore. But then you layer breast cancer into it, and it could be extremely overwhelming because you're trying to take care of yourself. You know, if you're a parent, you're trying to make sure the kids are looked after, but now you have to jump on the usual holiday bandwagon of like, what do I give everyone? What gifts am I buying? I need to decorate the house. And my biggest piece of advice is it's not selfish to practice self-care. And I think when the holiday season comes, especially for those listening that are recently diagnosed, or if this is a caregiver, it's okay to kind of switch the script a little bit and take care of yourself. And I am all about self gifting and getting something for yourself, maybe not spending as much on the kids' toys and getting some things for yourself that you really need. And if there's ever a time to really dig into self care, it's when you're going through cancer treatment.
That's a lovely thought. I love that idea of, self gifting, treating yourself as your own best friend almost.
Absolutely. I think it's so important, not just during the holiday season, I would say all throughout the year, but because there's such an emphasis on giving and doing and running and the parties, like make sure that you, and it sounds so pragmatic, but put it in your planner. It doesn't have to be something, sure, it could be a massage or a manicure, but it could be, I'm going to sit and have tea for half an hour with a friend of mine or go for a gentle walk, like just to give yourself that time to just be. I think it's so important.
I think that's wonderful. It's so surprising to me as someone who sits on this side of the cancer experience when I hear people who are going through, say, chemotherapy, but their life hasn't stopped just because they've been diagnosed with cancer, just because they're going through chemotherapy. They still have to take care of the kids or their mother, or they have to organize the holiday party. And when I tell them, it's okay to ask the question, what about me? And it's almost as if they're looking for me to give them that permission, which I always find so strange. So it's really good to hear that message coming from you.
Thank you. And to make it okay, if a friend says, oh, what can I get you for holidays? It's okay to say, you know what, I could really use an Uber Eats gift card because I can't cook for the next few weeks. Set the rules aside of what you think the holidays mean. And people, especially your friends, your family, they will be grateful for the transparency of what your needs are during that time.
I think so because, that also strikes me as pragmatic, which is a word you just used, right? People want to be able to give you something that you actually need. And when you say, don't get me anything, it leaves that other person as saying, well, but I want to. I don't know what to do. So I love that sense that you're giving them direction. It's like instead of getting you that fabulous cashmere sweater from Neiman's,
which is great too. I would not refuse that, Don. That's totally my gift. Let's be fair.
All right, great segue. So tell us more about the origin story of the Cancer Fashionista brand and what drove you to launch it and the mission.
So in my first life, I was a fashion and beauty publicist, and I loved my work. And I had the opportunity to, work with celebrities and be on set. Very much the glamorous life. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun also. And when I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer 11 years ago, I was obviously very grateful that it was diagnosed early stage. So I was stage 1. And the treatment was aggressive. It was ACT chemotherapy, which otherwise known as the Red Devil. And I had a bilateral mastectomy. So once I knew what my course of treatment was, I think what happened for me next was, what can I control about this situation? And also layer onto that, I wanted to continue working. And how am I going to look and feel not like a supermodel? I just wanted to look like myself, going to work, picking the kids up from school. And Don, when I tell you, when I went online and I looked for the wigs, the lashes, the post-mastectomy bras, there was nothing in one place. I was like, where's the Vogue of breast cancer? So I love telling the story because I have a dear friend named Tina, and she has a British accent. And she was sort of my arms and legs throughout the whole thing, driving the kids everywhere. This was at the time when the whole mommy blog thing was a big deal. And she said to me, well, you ought to just start a blog. I'm like, Tina, I can't even make dinner. Like, are you serious? Because as I was going through the exercise of looking for things online, I would write things down, and I found some resources, but like I said, it was just not in one place. So I started this list, and she convinced me to start a blog. And when I tell you, it was weird. I literally woke up one morning and I just thought Cancer Fashionista. It just came out, and I started blogging, and I was doing this as my passion project while I was still a publicist. I remember I would run home after work, and I couldn't wait to see what kind of responses I would get from others like me that were going through it. And that's to me when the magic happened. When I realized that the resources that I needed, there were other people that needed it too. So I just fell in love with the idea of helping others while also, hello, I love to shop. I love finding great beauty and fashion products. So it just became this wild hybrid of the intersection of cancer and fashion and beauty. And then with social media, I, began to post. So this was nothing that I construed in a boardroom. It just happened very, very organically. And then during COVID, I thought, well, this might be a good time to start a podcast. So I launched Dear Cancer I'm Beautiful, which is a really great extension of what I do. And what I love about my podcast and podcasts in general is that it becomes like this evergreen library that you could dip in and out of. Like you go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Gee, I think I want to learn about bone health, or you know what? My lashes are falling out. What do I do? How do I look for a wig? How do I shop for a post-mastectomy bra? So now everything is in one place. And I've now have the ability to do some really amazing programming. And my latest project, which I'm so proud of, is called Empowered Intimacy, Getting Your Sexy Back After Breast Cancer. And so this is a 4-part series that I launched last December with my bestie. Her name is Deltra, and she's also a triple negative breast cancer thriver. She is stage 4. And I had her on the podcast to talk about sex and dating and breast cancer. And then I was like, whoa, we just started to scratch the surface.
I think that's incredible. And of course, as anyone at ASCO will tell you, when you mention sex and cancer in the same sentence, my ears perk up, because it is still one of those areas where getting the help is so hard. And so having a resource from 2 survivors, one who had stage 4 disease, one who had early stage disease, that is so powerful. I still struggle to understand why most people in the medical community see it as sex or cancer, not both. If you have one, then you have to abandon the other, or there's nothing there. At least you're alive, is what I heard when I was training back in the late 1900s. And unfortunately, it's still a message people get.
You know what? You nailed it. And I said, wow, because I've never thought about it like that. It's not a either or. And that's why I'm doing this type of work and this type of series to encourage the patient to demand, yes, of course, the doctor is there to save our lives, but there's no reason to give up our quality of life and the things that bring us joy. Cancer is hard enough.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to listen to that specific four-parter because I have to do a talk in December and I might actually bring up some of the things that you teach me.
There's video on there too, so you'll get a kick out of it.
I will, and I'll let you know how it goes. So from your experience then as a fashion expert and cancer survivor, can you give some examples of the impact that fashion and clothing and beauty and self-expression can have on people with cancer, both during and after their treatments?
Absolutely. You certainly don't have to be a fashion person to need to feel better and to look better. And I think fashion and beauty is a great tool. It certainly is not going to change our diagnosis or make us heal any faster, but it helps heal us, I think, from an emotional standpoint and helps give us the confidence that we oftentimes lose. Because when you lose your hair, you lose your lashes, your brows, your breasts, your ovaries, many of us just don't even feel like ourselves anymore. And cancer, especially breast cancer, could be very defeminizing. It could strip us of the things that make us feel beautiful. And so my role as an advocate in this space has been to say, hey, after a mastectomy, your clothing may not be right for you anymore. Not saying you have to throw everything out and buy a whole new wardrobe, but piece by piece, you can redefine how you feel in your skin and in your clothing. That's why I created this platform, because it's sort of like the next question is, well, what should I wear? What if I'm flat? What if I have one breast? And I think that there's no better person to explain how to do that than those of us that have gone through it ourselves. It's interesting, right? Because I think a new top or a new post-mastectomy bra or a new shade of lipstick or false eyelashes could seem superficial, but really it's not, because if you feel better and you're more confident, you're going to feel better about going on a Zoom call with your team. You're going to feel better about picking your child up from school or even just going to Whole Foods and get some kale. Whatever it is, you want to be able to do your life in the same way. And it's very important. There's a lot to it.
It reminds me that the power of feeling good about yourself is not something you can underestimate, huh?
Absolutely. And it's also, especially if you have younger children that don't understand what's going on, I'm not saying to hide it, because my kids, for sure, I was treated in the hottest summer ever. And there were times that there was no way I was wearing a wig at home. And so I think it's also like how you want your friends and family to feel around you too. And like I said, and everyone's different. This is all very personal. I've always said, I don't need to look like a supermodel. I just want to look and feel like myself. And I like sharing options, right? Because I honestly hated wearing a wig during chemo. It was so cumbersome. I always said it was like wearing a ball gown in the middle of the desert. Like it's the only way I could describe it. And there are things like baseball hats with hair extensions. Like there are options. So there's a world to play with. And anyone that's listening, like if you feel like you don't look like yourself and you hate how you look in the mirror. I mean, I used to say like I felt like a ghost of myself. There are ways to help look and feel better. And it's really good to plug into community. And I always look at the newly diagnosed as my little sisters. Like I never had a big sister growing up, but a big sister will kind of say, hey, like, here's a great top. This is what you should wear. And so we support one another. And that's why I think also community is so important in that regard.
It must be so fulfilling then to sort of help people see themselves after that they've been diagnosed or even treated for cancer. I see that every day. People who don't look in mirrors or who walk past a mirror because they don't know who this person is staring back at them. I wonder if you could just sort of describe that process of self-discovery that you're helping people do with the work you're doing, whether it's personally talking them through options or even the feedback you've gotten from your blog. What has that been like?
Absolutely. I've learned a lot about myself too. And what I say to people, this doesn't happen overnight. You're going to have days that you really are so sad and are kind of like, what the heck? How could this have happened to me? I was healthy yesterday and it's so unfair. My biggest mantra is I don't want anyone to feel alone. I felt very alone. I felt very isolated to the point on that I remember thinking to myself, I'm so happy that my chemotherapy is in the summer, so I don't have to go pick up my kids at school. No one should ever have to feel that way, to feel like they can't leave their home. That makes me so sad. And that's why I do what I do, because I like to lift and inspire and show those of us that are recently diagnosed that there are tools and ways to feel better and to reclaim your confidence. Because like I always say, cancer can take a lot of things away from us, your lashes, hair, your breasts, but it can't take the essence away of what makes you the beautiful person that you are inside. It can't take that.
One of the other things I just want to ask you, since, you're launching this space of intimacy and sex, right? What I've found, especially for couples, is that the harshest critic in that relationship is the one that stares back at you in that mirror. Your partner or your husband or your lover can tell you, you are still so beautiful to me. You haven't changed at all. It's as if you cannot hear it because you have this proof staring at you. And I think it is this way of saying, and I say this quite often, you are still in there. But I just see the work you're doing is so critical because it allows the partner to sort of engage in a way that's safer, it seems.
1,000%. We are our own worst critic always. And even like when Deltra and I, we recently launched an episode about dating. And there's all these like preconceived notions that, well, once I tell this person that I'm on the third, fourth, or fifth date with that I have reconstructed breasts, or I have no nipples, or I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, that they're going to run. These are assumptions. These are stories that we tell ourselves. And it's the same thing when you're in a relationship. I'm divorced now, but I was married at the time, but I was convinced that my now ex-husband wouldn't see me in the same way. It couldn't have been further from the truth, because the reason that you connect and fall in love with someone is not just for the physical nature of the person. It's everything else. And listen, I'm not going to lie. There were times that I did not even want intimacy. I needed to be comfortable with myself again. And that's the biggest lesson that I've learned from even doing that series and from going through this myself. It's a catchphrase we hear all the time on social media, self-love, but you really, truly need to love and accept and embrace yourself, your new body, your new shape, whatever that is, before you can allow someone else in. And that's the hardest part.
I think that is beautifully stated. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast. In Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful, you have a series of episodes focused again on self-love and confidence building after cancer treatment. Can you expand on your perspectives here and offer some takeaways, and which you've been doing already, but some more takeaways for patients, especially those who are finding themselves in treatment during the holidays?
Absolutely. I love my podcast. It is such a wonderful space. I'm so grateful to have created and invite others to play with me there. So it's called Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful. You can find it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And now I'm also available on YouTube. And like I mentioned earlier, it's really a library of all things, not just breast cancer, but cancer related. So I cover a wide range of topics, whether it be fashion, beauty, lifestyle, health. So I talk about everything from bone health to I have a series dedicated to step therapy, all about advocating for yourself, as well as an interview with Jen Rosenbaum, who does boudoir photography. I interviewed a makeup artist who actually had cancer himself. We talked about brows and lashes and how to grow everything back. And Dana Donofree, who's a dear friend of mine, she is the founder of Anna Ono Intimates, talks about how to shop for a post-mastectomy bra. So it's really practical tips and expert advice and insights on everything you need to know as a newly diagnosed or a survivor, thriver, going through all of it. And it's interesting because I'm way over 100 episodes, but I remember when I hit 100, I'm like, am I going to ever run out of topics? As you can see, I'm a talker. I used to get in trouble in class all the time for talking and passing notes. So I think it's a gift that I can now embrace. It's a passion project, and I find a place where I continue to learn from experts about so many different topics. And as far as takeaways, I think, especially since this episode is coming out around the holiday time, and that's something that we talked about, I want to underscore the fact that self-care is not selfish and that you should prioritize yourself, especially during the holiday season. So it doesn't have to be materialistic, although I love the idea of the cashmere sweater from Neiman Marcus. Definitely would not deny that, but it could be a hot cup of tea, scheduling time to meditate, to take that hot bubble bath. And if someone says, what can I get you? Think about what you really need. And maybe it is the cashmere sweater. But like I was saying earlier, if you're having trouble getting food on the table, Uber Eats gift card, or hey, my lashes, I'm having a difficult time. I would love some lash serum, or maybe can you help me shop for a wig? I don't know where to begin. That sort of thing. And then I think another takeaway is that fashion and beauty can be so empowering, and it's a way to reclaim yourself again.
I think that's great. Have you ever had someone ask you, what can I get you? Have you ever been able to tell them, like, well, there is this beautiful pashmina scarf at Bergdorf's that I've been eyeing. You could pick that thing up for me and I'd love it.
Hey, it depends what kind of friends you have. Listen, no limitations. But all kidding aside, I think it's nice to have something practical, but hey, it could also be something indulgent. I love the idea of even doing a group gift. Sometimes when a colleague at work is diagnosed and you don't know what to get, I wish they had them when I was being treated, but they have these beautiful wraps that are also like a blanket. So many beautiful options out there.
One quick question that actually came to mind just now is, how have you seen this evolution of work, which you said you absolutely loved your work as a publicist, and now you're a brand in and of yourself? Looking back, what's that evolution been like for you? And is there things from your old world that you still wish you could do, or are you still involved in both?
I love this question. I really feel like a hybrid, and I feel like the work that I did as a publicist has certainly helped me in the work that I do now, because I love people. I love connecting. And anyone that knows me is I'm excellent at following up. I'm like a follow-up queen. That gift has definitely followed me. It's interesting. I find a lot of it is culminated. I kind of needed to do all of this work, and it all kind of adds up to the kind of things that I do now, because like even when I'm researching guests, it's sort of like, what I would do as a publicist is, make sure that the guest is right, because I'm an outlet. So to make sure that those things align. So they definitely go hand in hand. But I wouldn't have traded my career as a publicist. I really did love it. And I think it kind of gives me the zhuzh that I have today and the love for fashion and all things like that. And to be able to share resources through the lens of a fashion person. Because for me, honestly, that's why I do what I do. Because I remember thinking when I first saw initially what post-mastectomy bras look like, I was like, no offense to you, but I'm like, it looks like a doctor designed it. Like, I don't want to wear that. I want to look and feel beautiful. I want something that doesn't scream cancer every minute. So the long-winded answer to your question is, I think I'm just a good combo of all the things that I used to do and all those things that now I think lend themselves to the work that I do today. And I just love helping people. I really do. Like I say, if I just help one person each day feel better about what they're going through, to have some kind of an aha moment about what they're dealing with, then my job is done.
Well, congratulations on that. It's so interesting to hear this life experience, this world you lived in, and how it's not only just informed, it's empowered you to go on and build this thing from like nothing. Now it's something important to a lot of people. Congratulations.
Like I said, I didn't mean to do it. I say it all. I did not mean to do this. It wasn't like I had a board meeting. Hear ye, hear ye. It just stemmed from, I think it's a combination of me loving to find the new resources, but still having the hunger to find, oh, is there a new lash serum? Oh, is there a new swimwear line that someone can really benefit from? And just wanting to help people.
I have just a couple of final questions before you go, but one of them concerns this. And again, it goes back to this thing we've been talking about this entire time about self-care. The diagnosis of cancer, we know, brings out a lot of emotions, a lot of anxiety, and certainly a lot of fears. And I think, again, when life doesn't stop just because you have cancer and you have all these different priorities that you are striving to meet, sometimes those fears and those anxieties get put away, they get pushed aside. I've seen it. I'm sure you can speak on experiences that you've heard about and even had maybe yourself, but that whole process of not confronting those challenging emotions can sometimes be pretty unhealthy. I'm wondering if you've touched on that and sort of what advice you give to people especially now around the holidays?
Great question. You have great questions. My gosh. So, to be completely transparent, when I was first diagnosed, I wanted nothing to do with community, and I had to be dragged to my first Living Beyond Breast Cancer conference. And I owe that to my dear friend, Haley Dinnerman, who's the executive director of the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, which it's wild because it's a national organization. They're based here, and I was board chair for a number of years, and I'm now a proud board member. But our daughters went to high school together. It's just by happenstance. I could walk to her house practically. And she convinced me to go. And in fact, this is a really crazy part of the story. She invited me to this. Now, I was still a publicist and I was newly diagnosed and I was keeping everything on the down low. And she said, would you like to be one of our champions? And I said, what do you mean? She said, we'll put your photo and your story on our website. I'm like, absolutely not. I was afraid I would lose clients. Like, I was in such a fear and I wasn't giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. I just almost keeping this as like the secret. And then I went to the convention and I looked around and I thought, okay, I'm not alone. And that's it. Because I was never much of a group joiner and all those things. But I think for anyone listening, if you take one thing away, it's you should never have to feel like you're doing this on your own, because your partner, husband, boyfriend, sister, colleague, no one's going to understand it like someone else who is going through it or has gone through it. And it's such a critical piece of, I think, healing. And look, these community connections come in different shapes and forms. There's some amazing conferences like Triple Negative. We have our Zoom meetup calls every single month. There are different ways to connect, but I think that is super important when it comes to getting through something like a cancer diagnosis.
I find that very interesting because a struggle for me as an oncologist is pointing people towards resources and say, I know you have this huge family that love you, but sometimes you just need to find people also going through this. And I can introduce you to these communities. And I don't know what the thing that stops it, but maybe it is this sense that I'm not this type of person, or maybe I'm more of an introvert. But maybe what I need to do is actually just start with that idea that you just said, Melissa. You know what? You don't need to go through this alone. In fact, you aren't alone, as a way to break through that sort of reluctance or that hesitation that so many people sometimes feel when they're diagnosed with cancer.
Absolutely. And it's also acceptance. Don, it took me a while. I remember thinking, I am not part of this. Like, it took a while for me to even accept. So I think acceptance, if a friend calls me and says, oh my God, so-and-so was diagnosed, the first thing I'm going to tell them is not go join a group. Not necessarily. Not like 1-2 weeks after diagnosis. You need to settle into it, know what your treatment plan is, make sure you have a good support within your home, around your home, with your colleagues at work, all that. But I think it's a really important piece. And I don't think I would have understood the importance of it unless I had gone through it myself.
Yeah. I think that's really important lessons for me. So see that? You're teaching me something already.
Oh, well, I'm learning a lot from you too.
All right. So as a cancer advocate and as someone who's lived through the experience herself, you understand the vital role that research has in advancing new treatments and bringing hope to people. Can you speak to the ways that supporting and funding cancer research can serve as a form of empowerment, both for the person diagnosed with cancer and also for others?
Absolutely. Do you go to SABCS, the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium?
Not only am I going this year, but you must come to our session. It's called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll.
Well, I need to be there with you.
Yes, you do.
We definitely need to talk after this, Don. So the reason that I bring up SABCS is I go there every year along with Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. My dear friend, Ricky Fairley, she's actually my first triple negative friend, and Haley Dinnerman of the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation. And we actually do something called Your Guide to SABCS. We interview researchers, and we're going to have to get you on that, and all kinds of people to share what's going on. And for me, as a patient advocate, I never really understood how research worked. And to answer your question, I always thought that one day we're going to wake up, there's going to be a cure for breast cancer. What I am learning is that it's the incremental moves, the changes that we have, the advances that we find that we're able to create is what's going to bring us closer to a cure. And the reason that I understand the importance of research and what I want to share here is that research may not always mean an immediate cure, but it moves us closer. And it also helps us learn more about treatment. Maybe we're over-treating. Maybe someone's having crazy side effects because they're getting more treatment than they need. Like, how can we start to tailor and customize the treatment? So I am really passionate about research because that is not only going to help hopefully eradicate the disease, but it'll help us with maintaining quality of life while those of us are being treated for it.
Yeah. I think it's the promise of, I think what you're getting is this sort of idea of individualizing therapy, not only to the person, but to her cancer, so that you're not treating everyone with this broad, big stroke. And I think that is certainly something we are seeing in the approaches we take to breast cancer. So I would 100% agree with you. All right, we're going to wrap up soon, Melissa. What are 3 key things you encourage listeners to take away from this conversation?
All right. 3 key takeaways are: self-care is not selfish, especially during the holiday season. Fashion and beauty is super empowering. It's a way to reclaim your sense of self. Research, research, research. It may not mean a cure tomorrow, but it means that we're getting closer to eradicating this disease while also being able to maintain a better quality of life, but also to be able to be more proactive about customizing our care, personalizing the treatment based on the type of breast cancer or cancer that we have.
Fantastic. And my final question, what does conquering cancer look like to you?
It's so interesting because I'll be honest, I don't like fight words like battle and fight, but to me, conquer is sort of like overcoming. Here's the thing. I don't know that we ever overcome it. And I think we're all on a mission to eradicate cancer. And I think by having these conversations kind of all add to that because we're educating the patient community. And even though they feel maybe that cancer is conquering them or it's getting the best of them, I think this is a way to say, here are some tools to help you feel better, to help you look better, to help you get through the process better. So for me, it's not about conquering it. It's about how to live through it with integrity.
Well, this was a pleasure actually having you on, Melissa. This was an absolute pleasure. I can't believe an hour went by so quickly. Hopefully you will continue to prosper and grow this brand, and just know that you are doing good work.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you for inviting me to come on the show and to be a part of this community. And it's so funny. I don't think of myself as a brand. I just want to help. And I just hope that anyone tuning in feels more supported and loved and knows that they're not alone.
I think you're well on your way to accomplishing that goal. So thank you.
And thank you for everything that you do. You're a force yourself.
Thank you for that. Thank you for listening to this podcast brought to you by Conquer Cancer, the ASCO Foundation. Conquer Cancer is creating a world where cancer is prevented or cured, and every survivor is healthy. You can make a gift at conquer.org/podcast. The participants of this podcast report no conflicts of interest relevant to this podcast. Full disclosures can be found on the episode page on conquer.org.
The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform. This is not a substitute for professional medical care and is not intended for use in the diagnosis or treatment of individual conditions. Guests on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Guest statements on the podcast do not express the opinions of ASCO. The mention of any product, service, organization, activity, or therapy should not be construed as an ASCO endorsement.